Welcome to the Entrusting the Faith podcast. I'm your host, Eric Rutherford, and I am thrilled today because I have with me Kyle Eipperle. He is a researcher with Operation World and a longtime missionary who spent nearly 20 years serving in the Ukraine, alongside developing resources focused on unreached people groups across Europe and Asia. Kyle and his wife, Carrie, faithfully raised and discipled their 8 children, whom they've homeschooled from the beginning. They've been married for 30 years, and their life's just been marked by deep commitment to family discipleship and global missions. Kyle, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you. Glad to be here.
It's my pleasure, and I'm thrilled because um, I've used Operation World now for whew, man, the math on that starts getting a little, well over 20 years. Use it with our kids, and so I think it's an amazing resource, and just want to make people who aren't aware of it kind of expose them to it, and just give them some background on it. So thanks for joining me. So let's just start for people who are unfamiliar with Operation World.
Huh?
What is it?
Right. Well, most people who know it know of the book. The book is now in its 8th edition.
Wow.
It began in 1964 in a part of Africa which was known as Rhodesia at the time. Now in the southern part of Africa, and developed by Patrick Johnstone, who was a missionary. And the first publication he did, like the first edition of Operation World, was just 32 pages of a few regions of the world to help the church pray for the nations. And it's much bigger now. It's over 1,000 pages. My book has kind of crumbled and fallen apart because it's such a large book, but it covers every country of the world. And how can Christians pray? How can Christians pray for the nations? And it provides statistical data, prayer points, and information about how we can pray for that particular country.
I didn't realize it has been around for that long.
Yeah, 60 years. We're celebrating 60 years now.
Wow. So the eighth edition of it. I don't know if I think at one point in time I had a paper copy. For the last, 10 plus years, I know when I've been using it, I've been on the email list, or I've been using the app, which is really a great tool. And so it has every country in the world, all the statistics. So how did you get involved with Operation World?
Right. Well, I was in my last term in Ukraine, 2017, 2018. That's when our oldest daughter was turning 18. She was born in 2000, so she had a decision to make, and we had a decision to make, because children who are 18 cannot stay in the country and stay with the family. They need their own visa. And in order to get a visa, you'd have to become a missionary. So she had no plans for that. So we decided as a family to return to the States with her. At the time, we had 7 children. And, there would be the next one that would be going through the same process of transitioning from Ukraine and back into the United States. We wanted to continue discipling our children and helping them in their life. Who are they going to be, and what are they going to do? How do you live in a country you've never lived in? How do you even function? They don't have a driver's license. They don't have any bank account. They don't have really anything in America for them to begin their lives. So we saw this as a new phase, a new journey, I guess, for the entire family.
That's amazing that the door opened up. You're able to do that. I know, because that has to be incredible. It's stressful trying to figure out how to best help your children in that respect.
Right. And so we wonder, what are we going to do? The nations have not been reached. I'm not just going to stop doing missions. Some of the work we were doing in Ukraine was mobilizing Ukrainians to be missionaries, and training and mobilizing and helping to get them to go outside their country to the nations. And we actually did see that happen. And one of the ministries had many. I did everything. I did everything from student ministries to camping ministries to preaching ministries and teaching at seminaries and Bible colleges in Ukraine. But the passion really was this missions mobilization to see a church that was receiving missionaries, sending out missionaries. So one of my ministries was creating prayer guides for the unreached people groups of Russia and Ukraine and Central Asia, places where Ukrainians would go as missionaries. And I love doing that. And I thought maybe I would continue doing that even with our organization in the States, but they didn't see a need or a vision to have that kind of ministry. But someone in our organization knew Jason, the author of Operation World, and the Operation World was looking for someone. They sent out requests to organizations as to the type of people that they're looking for, and they thought of me. Leadership thought of Kyle. There's Kyle. He does this. He does this research on the nations of the world. And it all began with that. And I had some conversations with the leadership of Operation World, and it fell right into place, right needing, a new ministry here in the States in 2019. God really provided for us. And
that is wonderful to hear. I want to get into kind of what you do as a researcher, but before we do that, let me ask, so I know what an unreached people group is, but some of our listeners might not. Would you
Right.
kind of describe what that is for those who may not know that term?
Sure. There's many terms that are used: unreached or least reached, or just lost or hidden peoples. And Joshua Project is probably the group that helps to define what unreached is. And you take a percentage of a people group, an ethno-linguistic people group that have the same, language, culture. They're probably in the same country. Unreached is anything below 2% Christian. If there's an evangelical Christian church with more than 2%, they kind of move up into the reached category, that they do have enough believers within that community in order to reach the community. Yeah, anything above 2% Christian reached, below 2% would be unreached.
So below 2% is kind of that cutoff, which it defines it as
We just say unreached, but the full definition is they're unreached with the gospel.
They're unreached with the gospel. So that means very low percentage of believers, and very little access to the gospel, it sounds like.
Right. Exactly.
And so, as a researcher, what's that job look like? So how do you contribute, make Operation World, and continue to improve upon it and make it the resource that it is?
Yeah. Well, the thing about all of the, versions, editions of Operation World, the last one which was published was in 2010. If your copy of Operation World is orange and blue, that is the 7th edition of Operation World. And that's already 16 years. That's already 16 years ago. And there are countries that have came to be since 2010. There was no South Sudan. There was no South Sudan at the time. There are some countries that have changed their name. The thing is, when we start to write, usually by the time it's published and out into the people, it's already starting to get. It started getting outdated, and we wish we could just, wave our hands and say, everybody stop. Please do not change. No wars, please. No. But it's a changing world. And the wonderful thing about the app is we can update that. We update that every year.
Okay.
When there's significant change in a country, every year we update the app. So that is, if you want current prayer points and things to pray for the nations, the app currently is the most up to date. So what we do is we read a lot. We search a lot. We read from mission organizations and churches, whatever news from whatever country. Luckily, we are a global We are a global team. We have people in Korea, in Germany, in the UK, in Canada, in the US, Africa as well. So we have quite a wide range of workers on our team that can really opens up a lot when you have people who are from Asia, Africa, Europe, North America. It helps in reading.
Hmm.
I speak Russian and Ukrainian. I can read those languages. They're very thankful that they have somebody who could get into some of these details that an English speaker would not be able to. So we continue just collating and collecting information, something that never stops. So we're in the writing process right now, and hopefully soon, in a few years, there'll be a new book.
That's excellent. That's excellent. And as a as a prayer guide, I know you mentioned that
Mhm.
one of the ways that Operation World really serves believers around the world. What else makes it such an important resource for believers?
Yeah. Some people just use it as an encyclopedia just for information, but the goal is that people would pray. Prayer is an essential part of missions. I would say it's in the DNA of the Bible. When Paul and Barnabas were sent out as missionaries, the first missionary team, it happened during a prayer meeting. It happened while the church was praying and worshiping in Acts 13. We read. So prayer is probably the goal and the work of missions. I love talking about this.
It is, and one of the things that I've really appreciated about Operation World is the detail you're able to go into with different people groups, different issues that are within a country, um, and really kind of being able to go very deep on some specifics that we don't read about
Yeah.
online or on social media. And I think that we, especially in these United States, we are just blind to.
Mhm. Yeah, if it's not in the news, it's not happening,
Yeah.
and people don't know. People have never heard of some of these countries.
Yeah, or the troubles that are going on there.
Mhm.
Especially for believers, that I think it isn't reported, in the mainstream. So what I know in emails back and forth, I know you said you had used Operation World with your family. So
Mhm.
how were prior to being a researcher there and now even as a researcher there with
Right.
children in the home, how have you used Operation World with your
Yeah.
family?
I Before I became a missionary, I worked at a Christian bookstore. I worked for Family Christian Stores back in the day, and I remember the manager of the store said, "Kyle, I was gonna go off to Moody Bible Institute as a student in their graduate program," and he said, "Well, you're gonna need some resources, some books. Pick out I'll give you I'll give you a half price." And one of the books I got was Operation World. It was the 2001 edition of Operation World. It was one of, you pick up some commentaries and a dictionary and a concordance and things like this. But Operation World was one of those resources that I needed to have and wanted to know about what is going on. Yeah, what is going on in Zimbabwe? What is going on in Afghanistan? And are there any Christians there? Really?
Mhm.
Think of Iran right now. There's more than 1 million Christians in Iran, and many of these people came to faith through Chinese missionaries. It's difficult for us in North America to go there, but there are Christians from other countries as well sending missionaries. And how do we pray for the Iranians today? How do we pray for them? And so, yeah, that's what we want to do. And how we've used it as a family, the first resource we've used with our children was Window on the World.
Mm.
That was part of, I think we were doing Sunlight curriculum and was part of the curriculum for homeschooling families. And we started using that. And what that is a very colorful and big publication for Sunday schools or with children. I'm an adult and I enjoy looking at it and
Yeah.
reading it. There's usually a story, maybe one of the people groups that is covered. There's some facts in there and points on how to pray. And what we've always done is pray for people, pray for the nations. That's what we would do and continue to do. Just recently, I think last year, we were going through the app. Each day, we'd pray for the country of the day. Operation World is like a calendar. If you have the book, you'll see on the bottom of the book the days of the year and what we're praying for this day. Something new each day to pray for.
I love that. So we've, excuse me, we've used Window on the World. We use it with our kids. We use it as part of curriculum when we taught sixth grade at a church for several years, and that was one of the things we always had our students go through at home, with their families. It's just a phenomenal resource to learn and pray for and get exposure to, and very engaging. If you're listening, I can't recommend that one enough,
Mm-hmm.
especially with children. So yeah, we use that. We would when my kids were younger, as part of our family worship time, we would get the globe, and we would just we didn't follow the days of the year. We just
Mm-hmm.
basically would, I remember the first time we did it, I started in Japan, because it was a great place to start. It's right there on the ocean, and you just, each day we would just move through the geography
Uh-huh.
and pray for things, given a summary from the app. It's I love hearing how people use this information and as a family, because I think this is, man, there are a few things that are more important, I think. We'll get back to the show in just a moment, but first, if you're a guy and you're asking, how can I be of consequence to my family? I would encourage you to pick up my book, Leading Well at Home: How Husbands and Fathers Can Biblically Lead Their Families. It has action steps to get you going in the right direction and help you equip your family to follow Christ. Leading Well at Home. Link is in the show notes, or you can go directly to Amazon to pick it up. Now, back to the show.
Right. Yeah. Pray. I just remember in Matthew 9, Jesus said, pray for the harvest, pray for laborers. That was the strategy, of missions that Jesus taught his disciples, is to pray for the nations. And our kids enjoy doing it. We enjoy doing it. They're learning, they learn a lot all about. We have a map here on the wall and we go, okay, where is this place?
What do you think? Because unfortunately, I don't think this is common, this idea of praying for the nations. And maybe it's just where I've been and what I've seen. Do you think, is it a lack of awareness, a lack of not understanding the need, or maybe an unawareness of the resources available? I just love your take on what keeps this from, I don't know,
Right.
why is this not more common than it is?
Yeah. Well, prayer meetings, aren't always the most popular thing in the church.
No,
You
they
know,
aren't.
there used to be Sunday night or even Wednesday prayer meetings that were regular things the church did. And I think it's not just about praying for the nations, it's just about praying, period. But, as James wrote, prayer of a righteous person is powerful and effective. And I don't think we realize that power, that potential we have being on our knees, humbling ourselves and asking God. And he even says in his word, pray for those in authority, pray for kings and those in authority. And in every country, there's somebody who's in authority, and we should pray for them. So even the dictators, remember Nebuchadnezzar, pray for them and they will change. And the prayer of faith changes things. And I remember just here in Ukraine, hearing from the old believers, well, why did the wall come down? Why did the Soviet Union break up? They would say, because of prayer. We prayed. We've been praying for years, decades about this, and God answered our prayers.
Wow. Wow. I'm just thinking about that now. The wall comes down, what, 91?
Yeah, it's
90, 91? But
80, 80, 89, things started
okay.
changing. Perestroika and openness. Yeah, 91 is when the countries started becoming independent nations.
And I can only imagine having those conversations with those believers.
Yeah. Well, I learned a lot about prayer from them.
I
They are powerful when they pray.
I can only imagine with being, the former Soviet Union, very much, man, everything was clamped down and very much persecution, but to pray with that kind of faith,
And today, with the war going on and people continuing on faithfully and praying for its end.
that is, man, how much do we need that reminder that God answers prayer?
Yeah, and he
Um,
does.
what kind of impact have you seen Operation World actually
Mhm.
have among churches and believers?
Yeah. Well, we do have the info at email address. I don't know, maybe that's how you contacted us.
Actually, it is. I had just dropped it in there and
And
just to reach out.
we'll hear from people with incredible testimonies how they were not interested in missions, but they got a hold of Operation World and started praying for a country. And lo and behold, a few years later, they end up as missionary in that country. We've gone to, Jason's gone to conferences, the global conferences, and people will come up to him and say how it impacted it was part of their calling, was part of their calling and drawing them into missions. And what I found out is the more you learn about a place, the more you learn about a people, the more you will be
Yeah.
drawn to them, wanting to know more. You start getting curious, you want to know more. And before long, you found out that your address has changed. You have ended up in Ukraine. I don't know how I got to Ukraine, but it happened.
Mm,
People, yeah, more than once we've heard this.
that is beautiful. I love that. I love what the Lord does through things like this to stir the hearts of his people.
Right. Yeah. Praying to God about an ethnic group or a part of the world.
Yeah. It is amazing what the Lord can and will do.
Yeah.
As we kind of wrap up, any kind of final takeaways for the audience, whether it's encouragement, whether it's a challenge, anything you would kind of
Hmm.
give to them as a
Yeah. Well, you can learn more about Operation World just by going to operationworld.org from the website. And there's many more resources. There is the app, which is, like I said before, it is the most up to date. And actually, every week, every Wednesday morning for us here in United States, in Midwest United States, every morning at 8 o'clock, we gather on Zoom to pray for the 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 people of the day. And this is a global, people from Asia, people from Africa, North and South America, people from all over the world come to this prayer meeting. And we can certainly get you to know the address on Zoom as to how to join us in prayer for the nations. Perhaps you're already doing it at home, but if you wanted to join others, and we usually have someone from that country telling us, what do you need and what does your country need? This past Wednesday, we prayed for DRC, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and we had gathered with another group in Africa of mission organization. We had over 30 people at that meeting, and I think every Wednesday is an incredible thing. We just through prayer and people humbling themselves. If you don't even know English, people pray in other languages. So yeah, I hope that people will use the prayer guide, the app, however, other resources that are found on the website. Our resources have been translated into 20 different languages. There is, yeah, pretty much anything from bulletins for churches to do once a month that you can download. There are PowerPoints with some of the prayer points that you could use at a at a church Bible study or prayer meeting. So yeah.
excellent. So if you're listening, operationworld.org, I'm going to drop that in the show
Mhm.
notes as well. Check it out. get informed and find out how, man, how we can pray for believers around the world and pray that God would move in powerful ways, in ways that only God can move.
Yeah.
So, Kyle, this has been a delightful conversation. I really appreciate you joining me today for all that you've shared.
You're welcome. Very, very much enjoyed it.